And especially the day of, you looked at Polymarket and you looked at the Bitcoin price, you knew that Trump was going to win, right? Because those things are leading indicators. The legacy media is lagging way behind all these things. And they told people up until the day of the election that it was neck and neck, that Kamala was going to win Iowa, like the red state in the middle of America. No way. And so it's really crazy to see how legacy media is just thrashing out now, trying to attack things like X. And Elon Musk says it all the time that we are the media now. And that's what's really crazy, doing this at this moment, becoming a Bitcoin media outlet where we have these platforms where you can speak the truth and get the real message out there and compete with the big boys.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining the show. Can you please introduce yourself for our audience?
Yes. So I'm Rob Wallace. I'm the co-founder of BitcoinNews.com. We are a Bitcoin media company with platforms on X, YouTube, newsletters, and daily editorial on our website.
Okay. Perhaps we before digging into Bitcoin news, can you share with us your personal journey into Bitcoin?
Yeah. I would trace my original Bitcoiner tendencies back to 2008, 2009. While I wasn't orange pilled on Bitcoin back then, I didn't find out about Bitcoin back then, but the philosophy behind it really struck me, right? With the financial crisis, the same thing that sort of got Satoshi to come out into the world and release Bitcoin, that also had a deep effect on me. I was a sophomore in college at Tufts University studying international relations, thought I wanted to go into the government, be a diplomat, something like that. But then I saw Hank Paulson came on TV in September of that year and say that if we don't give the bankers close to $1 trillion, we're going to have martial law and tanks on the streets, right? So once I heard that, I knew something was extremely fishy, and it made me investigate what was actually going on. So that's how I found Austrian economics, Ron Paul, started looking into the wars that were a big part of my childhood, this global war on terror. Like, what was the point of all that? Where was that money going? And what was the main objective? And the things I saw weren't too bright and rosy, right? And I got sort of blackpilled on what was going on in the world at the time and my place in it. As a college student wanting to contribute to the system, I want to help this fiat war machine keep going. So I decided to leave school and go to China. I was studying Chinese at the time and spent some time in China and spent the next 4 years there. And that's where I had a lot of my entrepreneurial beginnings, started doing video production, working for a magazine, throwing events. And that got me into this production career. And so since then, I've been doing advertising, video, PR, and have always had this sort of economics, intellectual passion. And over the decade, back in 2008, 2009, I was watching a lot of, Zero Hedge and Stansberry Research, and they made it sound like hyperinflation was around the corner. In 2012, the dollar would be printed to infinity, and we'd be spending $100 for a loaf of bread. That did not happen. The 2010s were quite the boom period, at least in terms of the stock market and whatnot. And I had to sort of realign my thinking and see what was really going on. But I had that same feeling back in 2020 when they started printing money during COVID. I had that same sinking feeling in my stomach that we're being lied to. Something's not right here. I need to dive deeper. And it was during 2020 COVID that I had the time and the space to really dive into Bitcoin, figure out that it wasn't a scam. This thing is for real. It's the greatest technological breakthrough since at least the internet, right? And it offered us hope. So I dove deep into Bitcoin in 2020 and started working on Bitcoin news in 2023.
Okay, so you launched Bitcoin News in 2023, so like 1 year ago. When was it?
So this German fellow, Leon, he was running the website. He purchased it in 2021. He was doing it as a side project, and I joined on in beginning of 23 as sort of like a video editor, but just grew my responsibilities over that first year. And at the end of 2023, I officially took over the company with my business partner. And it's been the two of us for running it for a little over a year now, and just trying to expand as fast as possible on as many platforms as possible.
So can you like explain to our audience what's Bitcoin News and what do you broadcast? Where do you broadcast it?
Yeah. So Bitcoin News, we're a Bitcoin media company. And the amazing thing about Bitcoin is that it's not just economics and macro and interest rates. It's culture, it's lifestyle, it's philosophy. And so, as a Bitcoin media company, and with a large following on X, we have close to 200,000 followers over on X, formerly known as Twitter. And
200,000. Wow, that's like a year.
so yeah, when I started, we had 20,000 in the January of 23, and over the last few years, I've grown it to we're at 180,000 as of today.
Okay, wow, well done.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
so that's on X, and where else?
On YouTube, you can search Bitcoin News.com, one word, Bitcoin News.com, and there you'll find our YouTube where we specialize in live streams. We have Luke Mikic. He's a Bitcoin influencer from Australia, and he goes online 2 to 3 times a week, talks about the latest current events, brings up charts and data, and he'll do about 20-minute live streams. And we've had a lot of great success. We're actually one of the fastest growing YouTube channels for Bitcoin over the last year.
Okay, and on the website you have something or not? Only X and YouTube.
Yeah, so we have bitcoinnews.com and we've got daily editorial. You'll find the latest news stories, interviews with founders in the Bitcoin space, and of course, the links to everything else on the website, bitcoinnews.com.
Okay, great. So how is it running a Bitcoin media company, and how does it differentiate from running other media companies? I would say
Yeah.
what makes it like particularly good, but also challenging at the same time, maybe.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's crazy when you look at the analytics in terms of the feast and famine nature of Bitcoin media. During the bull run, you can have exponential growth, and then during the bear market, it's you're scraping by, and it's sort of a hard time to find sponsors and advertisers, and because I mean, just the money in the space and for these different companies, it dries up for a good.
So you're like a Bitcoin miner, basically. When the price goes up, you make a lot of money, and when the price goes down, you're like struggling to pay the bill.
Yes. Well, I mean, I joined on.
Is that hard? Like I asked this question to every Bitcoin CEO, and they all have this problem. So the only solution for them is to minimize costs as much as possible in order to be able to cope with the downturns and be able to survive basically the downturns.
Yeah, you really do need to store up a lot of fat for the winter, right? You need to be a hungry bear when you can get it.
Yeah, but when you have like it's kind of counterintuitive because when you have like an amazing technology like the internet, like you said, or like companies today in AI, they're not like storing fat. They're like spending as much as possible because they want to ride like this wave to the max and be sure to be number one once they're there. But on the Bitcoin side of companies, basically, it's very, very hard and very challenging first to find capital and then to manage the company, knowing that you're in a very volatile environment and revenues can go very, very high, but also very, very low.
Yeah. And when you're dealing with investors in the Bitcoin space, they know Bitcoin, right? And they know the return that they can get by just sitting on Bitcoin. So can you eclipse that hurdle rate? Is your company going to perform better than Bitcoin itself? And that's a very hard question to answer as a Bitcoin company. And so it forces you to be lean and to become profitable quickly and to just be bare bones and provide value. Because if you're not providing value, you will not survive in this space.
And what's the value providing? Like, how do you position yourself in terms of the content and the values that you provide your audience?
Yeah, so I mean, it's to be a Bitcoin media company in this regard. I mean, we're selling attention, right? To our clients, we do work with companies in the Bitcoin space when it comes to advertising and marketing, and that's how we generate the most of our revenue, right? By
How like if I want to advertise with you,
Mhm.
what kind of packages, or not in terms of number, of what kind of visibility can you give me, and where can I have it with you?
Yeah. So, I mean, one great example are ad reads during our live streams, right, on YouTube. So we'll have an audience of 2,000 people watching on X, 1,000 people watching live on YouTube. We'll do a 60-minute ad read for your company. It's a captive audience. They're live. They can't fast forward it through it, right?
A
And
minute,
so
60 seconds.
60 seconds. 60 seconds. Yeah.
Yes.
Being an advertiser would be a little too long. So yes, and then those live streams get anywhere between 15 to 25,000 views, right? So and it's really great because our audience grows close to the host, Luke Mikic. You get a lot of trust when you tune into a live stream and are doing that on a weekly basis. You get to sort of gain this relationship with the YouTube host, and so great way to connect with the audience, give them examples of how the host himself uses it. Are we able to bring up graphics and animations to really explain whatever the product is? And that's a great example. We have advertisements, of course, on the website, on the newsletter. We do sponsored tweets if you want to get the message out in front of our audience there. So there's many different avenues to.
Okay. So ad revenues. I saw also like the added value from your customer. I follow you on X, and you have like a lot of content. So like every single important news, you're there publishing it, like if not the first one, like very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And how do you manage to do that?
Yeah. It takes a lot of time online, right? I think my wife would rather me not spend as much time on Twitter as I do, but but babe, it's for work. It's for work, right? But in order to stay on top of the news, I mean, you got to have your tips and tricks, right? We have an aggregator that we built, sort of a proprietary platform on Telegram that gives us the latest articles and tweets and the biggest news that pops up right there, so we can always keep an eye on what's happening. And there's great websites like I'll shout out BTC Perception. He has a news aggregator on there with the latest headlines from all the biggest platforms, whether it's Forbes or Fortune or BBC, Bloomberg. And he also has a great newsletter where he judges the media sentiment around Bitcoin, whether the people on the big platforms are speaking positively or negatively about Bitcoin, and you can see that really vacillate over especially over a year period.
Yeah, this is something like I always struggle to find like ways to see, like because sometimes like the price is driven by demand and interest of people. But what I follow is like the Google searches, around Bitcoin. But sometimes there's a spike in price, but there's no spike in Google search or no spike of interest. And sometimes it's the opposite. It's like very high. How, as a news like receptor on your side, how do you measure basically sentiment, and how do you explain sometimes like the discrepancy between like the interest and the price actions?
Yeah, so it's funny. Right now, we are hitting new all-time highs as we speak. Right now, we're well over 100,000, and it almost seems quiet on the general media front. Right? I've gotten on a personal basis, I've gotten very few texts as to say, "Wow, Bitcoin," and the texts I have gotten have asked about other cryptos. Right? People think at this point, with Bitcoin over 100,000, that they've sort of missed the boat and they want to try to get into something smaller that they can multiply their money with. But my mission and my job to say no, Bitcoin is the one and only. It's the true course here, and you're guaranteed to it's the best saving technology out there, and that any other crypto is gotta be wary of scams. Gotta be wary of scams out there. So in terms of sentiment right now, it's funny how this is not the euphoria stage yet, and I don't think that we'll see that until we get to probably into 200, 300,000, probably about 6 to 9 months from now is when I think it's really going to get crazy. And that euphoria can only last for so long, right? Some people say that we're going to go into a super cycle this time around, that we've got all these nation states finally competing, and that we are just going to have a phase shift. We're going to jump from Bitcoin 100, 150,000 up to 500, and it's going to be this new world reserve asset that all the countries in the world need to, for as a matter of national security, own some of. Do I think that that could happen? Yes, but Bitcoin, you can't get too ahead of your britches, right? Every single cycle, people say, this is it. This is the super cycle. We're never coming back down. But Bitcoin has proven that, yes, we have these exponential run ups and then significant drawdowns, but it's part of the game. And the question is, can you withstand that and stay the course over time? And if you do, you are
But did you did you manage to find any like correlation or interaction or prediction from all this data that you're having, basically? Like I've thought about like having like a kind of AI trading bot that scours the media for information and aggregates sentiment in the financial world. You know, sentiment analysis based trading is a very, very developed field.
Mhm.
But I feel like in Bitcoin, it's like almost uncorrelated, you know, like it can go up, down, the other one can go out sideways.
Yeah,
Back. There's no prediction possible.
yeah, it often does the opposite of what you would expect in many cases.
Especially in the headlines, you know, like big headline, Bitcoin reserve, ETF coming, boom, drop. Hold on, did you read the same headlines that I read? Like, well, I, every single time I have the same like feeling that, like, even if you give me like some big news in advance, and I'm the first one to get it, which like in the stock market you would make a fortune having like a glimpse of the news beforehand. In the Bitcoin world, I feel like it can go like up and down or sideways all around, and
Yeah, I was speaking to a friend last night, and I think that's one of the reasons why there's sort of an aversion to Bitcoin on Wall Street. The fact that insider information isn't going to help you, right? I mean, this thing is issued by a protocol, not by a company or a C-suite who can decide to issue more shares and dilute the market. So it's a completely different beast, and the fact that as we said, inside information isn't going to help you here. I think it turns off a lot of the traditional finance.
yeah. And I find that also the only explanation also I can give is there's much less hands than in finance. Where in finance you have like so many bots, humans, analysts, experts, like crouching all these informations and converting them into price action. Where in Bitcoin it's like retail, a little bit of sophisticated investors, and most of the big guys are not there yet, basically.
Yeah, we're not. It's. I mean, we're still a tiny market cap, right, of $2 trillion compared to hundreds of trillions for the stock market, of course. So you will have much more sophisticated actors trading stocks on a daily basis, but you still see some action by the big boys, right? Like they will flush out the leverage on a pretty consistent basis. If there's too many people piling in and seeing this price run up, they will definitely take some coordinated action to wipe that out and clear out the open interest and allow it to build up more organically.
Okay, now perhaps I would like to dig into the personal experience,
Mhm.
or like an entrepreneur who wants to build on Bitcoin, and the whole challenges, not only like business wise, but also I find it spiritual wise, because I mean you still have your hairs on, but you can lose them, you know, by building on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So is it like a healthy thing to do, you know, to build a company based on Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing for a man is purpose, you know. And before Bitcoin, I was working in video production. I was working at Barstool Sports, which is one of the fastest growing media companies in America. And I was doing a travel show, right? And it was comedy. We were traveling around the country and having a ton of your life. You know, you're making comedy on the road, meeting new people, different cities, and it's so much fun. But at the end of the day, I mean, making people laugh is great, but this Bitcoin thing, it's the story of the moment, the decade, the century. And if I didn't put my full energy into getting this message out to as many people as possible, I feel like I would be shortchanging myself, as well as the greater world in any way and I can contribute towards it. So as and you see that in Bitcoin. I mean, in terms of the people who work with us, we've got a team of around 9 people around the world. Whether it's a editor in Iran, a designer in Thailand, a guy who helps me on Twitter in Italy, right? And I mean, all these people are driven by the desire to help the cause of Bitcoin. And so, are they willing to work long hours and not get paid as much to say if they worked in TradFi or some other industry? Yeah, because they believed in this purpose and they're willing to go that extra mile because Bitcoin is something that we believe can lead to a better world. And as I was going on before about the 2008, 2009 financial crisis, like, yeah, a lot of that alternative financial media, it's very blackpilling, right? It makes you feel not too hopeful for the future. They're selling gold, they're selling food rations for when the food runs out, buy your bullets here, you know. But that's not what Bitcoiners are focused on. They're focused on building a brighter future. We think that there is something here that can be the foundation level of a new society, and you see it spreading it's growing like a weed, you know, like a mycelium, like a fungus around the world in a good way, and it's setting its roots in. And after 15 years, I think that we're too far past it ever going away now. And even if some countries tried to outlaw it, other countries would adopt it, and because realizing the benefit it would give to them. And to see it go from Larry Fink on Wall Street to, I mean, these circular economies in El Salvador, Bitcoin Beach, of course. There's Bitcoin Akasi in South Africa. I mean, all over the world, you just see Bitcoin offering different things to different people, and it's so inspiring. And especially as a Bitcoin media company, you have an endless well of material to share with the world. And it's it's that combination of intellectual pursuit, purpose, and just novelty and being on the cutting edge of this revolution. It's hard not to do this. I really couldn't see myself doing anything else at this moment. And
So it's a very fulfilling from a personal experience to be able to broadcast that and spread the word around it, and and I find it very like almost purposeful to do it on Bitcoin, because in the media space, most of the space basically is taken by legacy media that spread 24/7 food on on Bitcoin instead of talking about the benefits. Now they're like a little bit less biased, but still there is like on a regular basis some article that comes in which is like raising a debate that is 10 years old and still like talking about like money laundering, terrorism, electricity consumption. All these have been addressed while while ago, and everybody who's done the research have done it. So be able to push forward all this, I think it's adds a layer of like, okay, I'm gonna spread the truth here. And in general, I find like, I don't know if like it's the algorithm or the automats or something that is going in the background, but the more I follow people on Bitcoin and Bitcoin related news, I feel I'm getting either through them or through the algorithm or through the space in which um X is putting me or YouTube is putting me and suggesting videos into kind of truth, you know,
Mm.
where you start like you stop getting like a lot of like these fake news or like biased uh, stuff that once you dig into it, you realize that it's a hoax. It was like misinformation and stuff, and you get like into real interesting stuff that you learn about that you didn't learn about before you go into Bitcoin.
yes, It's funny. There's the line about science that science progresses one obituary at a time, right? As the old ideas get filtered out, the new ones are allowed to flourish, and that's why it's so important to show up every single day as Bitcoin news and to post as much as we do. There's new people with who are coming to Bitcoin on a daily basis, and you need to be able to present what Bitcoin is, why it's so helpful to the world, and to dispel the FUD. And I mean, yes. So like the FT is classic. The Financial Times about their hating Bitcoin. They are just classically
Yeah, they
constantly
even like speak openly about it, like they hate it. It's like it's not.
they hate it. Yeah. And I mean, they just put out an article sort of as an apology, saying, "Yeah, we told you to stay away from this thing, but don't blame us. The number went up. Don't blame us for telling you not to pick something that is number one up, and we don't like TradFi either." It was just the weirdest cope of an apology ever, you know. Um, and then you got classic Bitcoin deniers like Paul Krugman. He's retiring from the New York Times, right? So I mean, these older voices are getting pushed out, and as Bitcoin just grows, it's undeniable that it is it's here, it's useful, and people who think that it's just for money laundering. I mean, of course, the dollar, like the fraction. Bitcoin is a tiny fraction of overall money laundering in the world, and the dollar does trillions a year, and Bitcoin is this infinitesimal little portion of that. So
No, but we against this argument, I say, so does the internet. Like, if we shut it down, people will be able to communicate less and do like it would reduce crime, it would reduce pedophilia, for example, for sure.
exactly,
Let's shut
exactly.
the internet, but they don't think like that. But I find that because to be able to be in the Bitcoin space as an audience, you have to go through a first stage where you're hearing from the legacy media that Bitcoin is bad. So you're reading, like in my industry, everybody reads the Financial Times. And the first thing they're gonna read is Bitcoin is a Ponzi or whatever articles they're gonna push forward to them. So they're gonna diss it. So, and that's what happened to me. Like the first time I saw it, I dissed it. But then you need to have like a special mindset to go one step further, say, hold on, maybe they are wrong, and let's challenge the traditional media and the traditional blogs that everybody listen to. And this mindset is a kind of mindset that if you apply it to any other afterwards, once you learn that, once it opens your eye, like whatever you're told, because it kind of opens your eyes that Bitcoin there's a lot of fake news spread about it in the legacy media, then like all the media becomes fake, and you become like a truth seeker, yourself. So now everything I read, I say, okay, I'm not believing this. I need to do my own research.
Yeah, and we're at this crazy time in media in general, where especially, I mean, I think the last election really showed it, right? Between X, Twitter, and these betting markets, you could tell that Trump was way in the lead, that he was going to run away with this thing days, weeks beforehand. And especially the day of, you looked at Polymarket and you looked at the Bitcoin price, you knew that Trump was going to win, right? Because those things are leading indicators. The legacy media is lagging way behind all these things, and they told people up until the day of the election that it was neck and neck, that Kamala was gonna win Iowa. Like the red state in the middle of America. No way. And so it's really crazy to see how legacy media is just thrashing out now. Trying to attack things like X. Where I mean, and Elon Musk says it all the time that we are the media now. And that's what's really crazy doing this at this moment, becoming a Bitcoin media outlet where we have these platforms where you can speak the truth and get the real message out there and compete with the big boys.
Yeah, but at the same time, like the offensive argument of legacy media is that now X is a platform for spreading disinformation. So if you wanna spread the theory that Earth is flat, for example, X is a very good place. Which I find they have a point, because you can spread much more fake news, I would say. But I think again, like it teaches you to do your own research and to follow the right persons and the right people, and then you get to the bottom of the real expertise on whatever topic you're searching for. So
Yeah, the only way to combat misinformation or hate speech is with more speech, right? Anytime you try to limit the narrative and have a bureaucrat sitting in the EU Parliament try to tell you what you can and cannot say, um, you're in a bad position, right? And I mean, human beings, we've gone through these huge shifts. I mean, we thought that the earth was the center of the universe, right? And if you said anything against that, you were a heretic and you could be put to death. But we found out that that was the opposite was true, and that the earth is not the center of the universe, and that the sun is the center of the solar system. And that took some people being willing to go out there and say something that's uncomfortable. And you need people who have the strength and confidence and the guts to put themselves out on the line, and Bitcoiners have had to do that, and for the last 15 years, and it seems as if we're winning now.
yeah, I hope I hope so. The light at the end of the tunnel. I'm gonna have to wrap it up. Thanks a lot for all these insight, Rob, and hopefully I'll have you on the show maybe in a year where you'll be at 1 million followers.
Cheers. Thank you so much, Pat. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, if anybody wants to follow us, check us out on X, Bitcoin Newscom, bitcoinnews.com for the website, YouTube. All the links are there. And yeah,
I will share them on the bottom of the video.
thank you so much.
Okay, take care.
We're good.